Rain poured endlessly over the narrow city streets, turning them into mirrors of shattered light. It was one of those nights when the world felt heavier than usual, when loneliness crept in like a quiet fog and even hope seemed to hide beneath the storm. Emily Hayes sat inside her small bakery, Sweet Haven, staring at the empty chairs and untouched pastries that had gone cold hours ago. The once lively aroma of fresh bread and vanilla had faded, replaced by the stale scent of struggle. Her business was failing, her savings nearly gone, and the dream she built with trembling hands was slipping away like sand through her fingers. She had tried everything, discounts, late hours, new recipes, but nothing could stop the slow downfall. Tonight, she was moments away from closing early, turning the key for what she feared might be one of the last times. Outside, lightning cracked open the sky. Through the blurry window, Emily saw a figure stumble under the rain, a man soaked to the bone, clutching his arm, limping as he tried to shield himself from the storm. Her first instinct was hesitation. The world had hardened her a bit in the past few months, she'd learned that kindness often came at a cost. But something about the man's trembling hands and lost eyes stirred something deep within her heart. Without thinking, she rushed outside with an umbrella, her shoes splashing through puddles. "Sir, please, come in," she insisted, guiding him toward the bakery door. The man's clothes were torn, his face partially hidden under a hood, but his exhaustion was clear. He looked as though he had nowhere else to go. Inside, the warmth of the oven brushed against his cold skin. Emily grabbed a towel, poured him a cup of coffee, and set down a plate of pastries that had been sitting untouched. The stranger hesitated before eating, as if unsure whether he deserved such care. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and humanity's power to heal, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Your support helps spread stories that remind us the world still has gentle hearts like yours. Hours passed quietly as rain whispered against the glass. The man said little, his voice low, uncertain, and filled with fatigue. Emily didn't ask questions, she simply offered what she could: food, warmth, silence, and a bit of peace. He finally told her his name was Daniel. That was all, no last name, no story. Yet his eyes carried a sadness too deep for words, as if he'd seen both greatness and loss. As days turned into weeks, Daniel began visiting again, not always to eat, sometimes just to sit. He would sweep the floor without being asked, fix a loose chair, or repair a broken light fixture. He rarely smiled, but when he did, it felt like sunlight after a long storm. Emily found comfort in his quiet presence. She was a woman who had given so much and received so little, and his unspoken gratitude meant more than any money she could earn. But the townspeople noticed. Whispers began to spread. "Who's that man always at her bakery?" they murmured. "Looks like a drifter, maybe trouble." Some customers stopped coming, fearing he might be dangerous. Business, already weak, took another hit. One afternoon, a regular customer, Mrs. Keller, told Emily bluntly that she was making a mistake trusting him. Emily tried to shrug it off, but doubt began to claw at her mind. Who was Daniel, really? One night, she returned from the storeroom to find Daniel standing near the counter, staring at an old photograph she kept on the wall, a picture of her late father shaking hands with a younger man in a business suit. That man had been someone famous once, the CEO of a large company who had mysteriously vanished after a corporate scandal years ago. The man in the photo had the same jawline, the same eyes, just younger and proud. Emily's heart skipped a beat. When Daniel noticed her watching, he looked away quickly, mumbling an excuse before leaving into the dark. The following morning, he didn't come back. Days passed. Then a week. Emily tried to focus on work, but her mind was restless. She searched his name online, though she barely had any clues. Nothing came up that matched him, until one late night, half asleep at the counter, she saw a headline flash across her phone: former billionaire Daniel Walker missing for years, feared dead after company collapse. She froze. The picture attached was unmistakable. It was him. Her heart pounded. She read the article over and over. Daniel Walker, the man who once owned one of the largest real estate empires in the country. The man accused of fraud and betrayal, whose empire had crumbled overnight. The man the media had painted as a villain. But the Daniel she knew wasn't a villain. He was broken, yes, but kind. Gentle. Quietly remorseful. Emily didn't sleep that night. She sat staring at the rain again, wondering why fate had sent him to her doorstep. Was it chance? Or a test? The next morning, she found a letter slipped under her bakery door. The handwriting was neat but shaky. Emily, I owe you more than words. I didn't come to your bakery to hide, I came because I needed to remember what goodness felt like. The world saw me as a monster, and maybe they're right. But you saw a man who was cold and hungry, and you fed him without question. I wanted to tell you who I was, but I couldn't bear to ruin the only place that made me feel human again. Thank you, for reminding me what kindness is. If I can ever repay you, I will. Daniel. Tears blurred the ink as she read. He was gone again, this time for real. She thought it was the end of the story, just another heartbreak added to her life of small losses. But life, as she was about to learn, has its own way of rewarding silent kindness. A few weeks later, a black car pulled up outside Sweet Haven. Emily had no customers that morning, just the sound of wind through the open door. A man in a formal suit stepped inside, carrying an envelope sealed with wax. "Are you Miss Emily Hayes?" he asked. When she nodded, he handed her the envelope and said, "Mr. Daniel Walker asked me to deliver this personally." Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a letter and a set of official documents. The letter read, "Dear Emily, I've rebuilt parts of my life quietly, away from the noise. Not through business, but through small acts of kindness that people like you inspired me to remember. The bakery you called your dream, it deserves to live. Inside this envelope, you'll find full ownership papers for the building, cleared of debt. Consider it a gift, not of charity, but of gratitude. You saved me when I didn't deserve to be saved. I hope this helps you save yourself, too. D.W." Below the letter was a certified deed confirming she now owned the property outright. Her bakery, her dream, was no longer sinking. It was saved. Emily pressed the paper to her chest and wept openly in the quiet shop. Every struggle, every sleepless night, every act of faith, it all came full circle in that single moment. She realized that kindness isn't a transaction. It's a seed planted in the dark, watered with tears, that blooms when you least expect it. Months passed, and Sweet Haven transformed. People returned, drawn not just by the pastries but by the story whispered through town about the woman who helped a stranger. Tourists began visiting, inspired by what they'd heard online. Someone had shared her story anonymously, and soon, it went viral. The bakery became a place of hope, a symbol of how one act of compassion could change a life forever. Emily never saw Daniel again, but sometimes, on rainy evenings, she'd catch a glimpse of a man standing across the street, watching quietly from the shadows before disappearing into the night. She never called out, some things are better left as unspoken gratitude between souls who once saved each other in silence. Years later, when Emily spoke at a local charity event, she told her story to a crowd moved to tears. She didn't mention Daniel's full name, only called him, the stranger who reminded me that miracles often wear ordinary faces. Her words echoed through the hall, kindness doesn't ask for recognition. It simply gives, and sometimes, it returns when you least expect it, in ways that heal far more than you gave away. As she finished her speech, she looked at the crowd and smiled softly, knowing somewhere out there, Daniel was probably smiling too. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Spark. Let's keep spreading stories that prove kindness can still change the world, one soul at a time. Speech balloon special request, Comment below what this story taught you about kindness, forgiveness, or second chances. She helped a stranger, then realized who he really was. A reminder that even a small act of compassion can ripple across lifetimes, transforming pain into purpose, and strangers into silent angels.